these lights, you're turning all these lights, boy.
Every so often, and it is a rare thing, an icon is born. Something so brilliant and so groundbreaking, it blows all of the competition out of the water. Welcome to the Generation 1 Triumph Street Triple. Things weren't going unbelievably well for Triumph up until 2005. They were making perfectly decent bikes, but nothing groundbreaking and nothing world-beating, until in 2006, they released the 675 Triumph Daytona, the sports bike that was critically acclaimed. In order to build on this success, Triumph decided to strip everything back, reduce the price by £2,000 and come up with a heavily road-biased version of the Triumph Daytona. They came up with this, the Triumph Street Triple 675. It shares the same frame, the same engine, the same fuel tank, the same wheels. 90% is the same, they just made it pleasant for actual road use. This bike, for me to give you the best idea about how groundbreaking it was, let me compare it to a couple of bikes as the competition. This is a 94 horsepower, 167 kilo motorcycle that cost £5,300 when new. If you look at the Kawasaki Z750 of the same era, it's a £600 premium over this bike. It's got 1 horsepower less than this bike, and it is 40 kilograms heavier than this bike. The Ducati Monster 696 of the exact same era was £500 more expensive than this, 40 horsepower less than this, and it was 5 kilos lighter. But that gives you an idea about how much better this bike was than the competition. Right, let's do a walk around, and we'll start with the most iconic part of the bike. This is what makes it. These are only available on the Generation 1 Triumph Street Triple, and this is a huge reason for me, just looks-wise, of what makes them so special and why they are so iconic, just from a looks point of view. The twin bug-eye chrome surround headlamps, they are a thing of beauty. Coupled with that, the Generation 1 gold forks, that front end is pure art. Coming around to the side, of course, it's completely based on a Daytona, but you don't have foot pegs back there. It's there. It's all manageable. They got a perfect balance, Triumph, with that sporty element from a Daytona, but making it perfectly easy for road use. There's no weight on my hands at all. Everything feels beautiful from an ergonomic point of view. And although this bike came out 15 years ago this bike came out, the quality is of the highest standard. This is why it was a groundbreaking bike. Not only were the stats better than all of the competition, the price was ridiculously low for such a brilliant bike, but the quality of the parts, there are no corners cut with anything on this bike. You could put this into a brand new showroom right now and it would absolutely hold its own. I cannot find any area that looks cheap or looks like they've cut corners. It's almost astounding that brand new could get this for £5,300. Now, I had the same era Triumph Speed Triple, and there are a couple of areas I would just warn against. If you're looking for one of these, try and avoid the Triumph alarm, because Triumph, in the mid to late 2000s, they still hadn't figured out how to actually make a good alarm, and they were so atrocious they should never have been signed off on. So try and stay away from the alarms, because they will drain your bike and they will cause you so much stress it's not even worth it. So if you have one, I would suggest take it off. But apart from that, just looking at the stats, looking at the bike itself, the ergonomics, the way it feels, it's a very good motorcycle. Right, let's get padded up and head into the mountains. two things I want to show before I get on to the ride review. Lean angle for one, because it's only 176 kilos, 167 kilos, which is bettered only by the monster of the same generation. So, 167 kilos. I know the lean angle will be good because it's based on a sports bike. But look at that. And because of the lightness, it just feels, when lifting, when maneuvering, but also when riding and attacking the bends, it feels so light and chuckable. It feels, if I compare it to the Speed Triple of the same era, the bike I had, 1000cc, it feels about half the size. It really is a gigantic difference. This feels much less substantial. The Speed Triple feels like a much bulkier, chunkier, planted bike. This much more flickable and nimble. So, not that there's a right or wrong, but just decide the kind of bike you like, because it makes a huge difference, that extra weight and bulk of the Speed Triple. And if I compare this to even a 2002 Ducati Monster that I've tried, maybe 7 years older than this, but this feels about 20 years newer. It still feels like, when riding, a very modern bike. I mean, nothing was groundbreaking here. The brakes, the suspension, there were no super trick components about it, but everything is so beautifully balanced. Pillion comfort, I have asked Monica, surprisingly good, she said. You may need to be careful with the high exhausts, and especially if you've got panniers, you may want to get a lower down exhaust, which would save you about 15 kilos on the original, but surprisingly good seat comfort. And I think the magic with this is, the engine it's a masterpiece. It is absolutely sublime, silky smooth, the most glorious engine notes. Brakes are very good. I've said it before, it's chuckable, it's flickable, power in all of the gears, and it's such a beautiful progressive power delivery. It's just addictive, getting on the power and coming off it and going down a gear and coming off it and attacking the bend. The reason this is so good is they have perfectly balanced the dynamism of a sports bike, but dialed it back to such an extent that it's genuinely pleasant and usable and enjoyable for long distances, for extended amounts of time on the road. That's the key. They've made this a properly pleasant place to be on the road. Got a lunch spot here, right up in the hills. Proper local spot, and I love these. Right on the side of the road, tables outside so you can just look at the bike. Okay, I was having a look yesterday at the prices that you're looking at for one of these, the first generation, 2007 to 2011 model. They come in at around about £3,500. However, they start going up to £4,000 extremely quickly. So from what I've seen, I think these have started very slightly creeping up in money over the past 1 to 1.5 years. And it's very interesting because now, this, the first generation, bearing in mind it's only 15 years old or so for the oldest model, it's actually now started overlapping the Gen 2 model with the different headlights around. And that usually happens closer to 20 years old for a motorbike. So the fact that at just 15 years old, this has actually started becoming more valuable than the Generation 2, I think means that we're onto a sure thing future classic, and possibly a desirable classic sooner than we often get with a lot of bikes, which sometimes take 30 years or so. So very possibly, even at 15 years old, prices have started rising. I almost completely forgot to mention exhaust sound. It's that unique triple sound from the exhaust. It's a gloriously civilized note. Have a listen to this. Nothing too ridiculous, just a very, very nice, solid, characterful grunt. I'm a huge fan of the triple sound. Every time I hear this, and this is a friend's bike in Tenerife, I can hear it coming down the road with that unique sound. I don't need to look out the window. I immediately get ready for a ride and hit the road without even looking outside because I know the sound of that engine. So characterful. Okay, in the interest of fairness and balance, and I remember having this exact same problem with my Triumph Speed Triple from this exact era. I always found a very slight problem with the gear change on these, whether it's getting it into neutral or getting it back down into first. It's not the most confidence inspiring, and I do sometimes find myself double or triple tapping down to get it back into first from second or third, and also getting it into neutral. So for me, that is probably just about the only weak area I find on these bikes. What we have here with the Generation 1 Triumph Street Triple is the evolutionary sweet spot for motorcycles, when everything here at its core as a motorcycle, the frame, the suspension, the engine, the brakes, is as good and will hold up to any modern motorcycle, yet it's just before all of the electronics came into play. So it is a sweet spot, and it is motorcycling purity. Look, you can get more powerful motorcycles. You can get a lot of motorcycles which will give you a bigger adrenaline kick. But this, as a complete package, the weight, the dynamism, the handling, and that glorious engine, this is the purist's choice. Well, it's Friday afternoon. We've got a full tank of fuel. We are about to head up into the hills for our last 2 hours with this bike. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on the Generation 1 Triumph Street Triple. Thank you so much for watching. Please do give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next one.